Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just near the English Channel. And we're here with my able and expert assistant, Abhay Das Brahmachari. And it's just me and him today because Rasika Shirmani is over at the Atma Lounge in Folkestone, preaching up a storm. And we hope that you are all fine and well and happy and Krishna conscious. And we aim to keep it that way by vibrating this transcendental sound of Srila Prabhupada's books into the ether every day without fail. Okay, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami glorifies the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and defines perfectly what it is. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaritya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadhuta Dayin Adini Chochatakara Hanamunchakadachin Mam Premna Rit Kantayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we reached the 5th chapter of the 1st canto, Narada's instructions on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for Vyasadeva. Imagine, Vyasadeva, literary incarnation of Godhead, who had compiled and edited all the Vedic literatures. And still Narada is instructing him in the basics. Yes, in the basics. We're beginning with text 36. Narada is continuing his instructions to Vyasadeva. While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him by repeatedly remembering his names and his qualities. Purport. An expert devotee can mold his life in such a way that while performing all kinds of duties, either for this or the next life, he can constantly remember the Lord's name, fame, qualities, and so on. The order of the Lord is distinctly there in the Bhagavad Gita. One should work only for the Lord in all spheres of life. In every sphere of life, the Lord should be situated as the proprietor. According to the Vedic rites, even in the worship of some demigods like Indra, Brahma, Saraswati, and Ganesh, the system is that in all circumstances, the representation of Vishnu must be there as Yagyeshwara, or the controlling power of such sacrifices. It is recommended that a particular demigod be worshipped for a particular purpose, but still the presence of Vishnu is compulsory in order to make the function proper. Apart from such Vedic duties, even in our ordinary dealings, for example in our household affairs or in our business or profession, we must consider that the result of all activities must be given over to the Supreme Enjoyer, Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has declared himself to be the Supreme Enjoyer of everything, the Supreme Proprietor of every planet, and the Supreme Friend of all beings. No one else but Lord Sri Krishna can claim to be the proprietor of everything within his creation. A pure devotee remembers this constantly, and in doing so, he repeats the transcendental name, fame, and qualities of the Lord, which means that he is constantly in touch with the Lord. The Lord is identical with his name, fame, and so on, and therefore to be constantly associating with his name, fame, and so on means actually to associate with the Lord. The major portion of our monetary income, not less than 50%, must be spent to carry out the order of Lord Krishna. Not only should we give the profit of our earning to this cause, but we must also arrange to preach this cult of devotion to others, because that is also one of the orders of the Lord. The Lord definitely says that no one is more dear to him than one who is always engaged in the preaching work of the Lord's name and fame all over the world. The scientific discoveries of the material world can also be equally engaged in carrying out his order. He wants the message of the Bhagavad Gita to be preached amongst his devotees. It may not be done so. It may not be so done amongst those who have no credit of austerities, charity, education, and so on. Therefore, the attempt must go on to convert unwilling men to become his devotees. Lord Chaitanya has taught a very simple method in this connection. He has taught the lesson for preaching the transcendental message through singing, dancing, and refreshment. As such, 50% of our income may be spent for this purpose. In this fallen age of quarrel and dissension, if only the leading and wealthy persons of society agree to spend 50% of their income on the service of the Lord, as it is taught by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium to the transcendental abode of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This was written a very long time ago. I'll read it again. In this fallen age of quarrel and dissension, if only the leading and wealthy persons of society agree to spend 50% of their income in the service of the Lord, as it is taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium to the transcendental abode of the Lord. No one will disagree to partake in a function where good singing, dancing, and refreshment are administered. Everyone will attend such a function, and everyone is sure to feel individually the transcendental presence of the Lord. This alone will help the attendants associate with the Lord and thereby purify themselves in spiritual realization. The only condition for successfully executing such spiritual activities is that they must be conducted under the guidance of a pure devotee who is completely free from all mundane desires, fruitive activities, and dry speculations about the nature of the Lord. No one has to discover the nature of the Lord. It is already spoken by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita, especially, and in all other Vedic literatures generally. We have simply to accept them in toto and abide by the orders of the Lord. That will guide us to the path of perfection. One can remain in his own position. No one has to change his position, especially in this age of variegated difficulties. The only condition is that one must give up the habit of dry speculation aimed at becoming one with the Lord. And after giving up such lofty, puffed up vanities, one may very submissively receive the orders of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam from the lips of a bona fide devotee whose qualification is mentioned above. That will make everything successful without a doubt. Text 37. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradyumna Yanirudyaya Namak Sankarshanaya Cha. Let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva, along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana. Purport. According to the Pancharatra, Narayana is the primeval cause of all expansions of Godhead. These are Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Vasudeva and Sankarshana are on the middle left and right. Pradyumna is on the right of Sankarshana, and Aniruddha is on the left of Vasudeva. And thus the four deities are situated. They are known as the four aides-de-camp of Lord Sri Krishna. This is a Vedic hymn or mantra beginning with Omkara Pranava, and thus the mantra is established by the transcendental chanting process, namely Om Namo, Dhimahi, and so on. The purport is that any transaction, either in the field of fruitive work or in empiric philosophy, which is not ultimately aimed at transcendental realization of the Supreme Lord, is considered to be useless. Narada ji has therefore explained the nature of unalloyed devotional service by his personal experience in the development of intimacy between the Lord and the living entity by a gradual process of progressive devotional activities. Such a progressive march of transcendental devotion for the Lord culminates in the attainment of loving service of the Lord, which is called prema, in different transcendental varieties of rasas, tastes. Such devotional service is also executed in mixed forms, namely mixed with fruitive work or empiric philosophical speculations. Now, the question which was raised by the great rishis headed by Shonaka regarding the confidential part of Sutta's achievement through the spiritual masters is explained herein by the chanting of this hymn consisting of 33 letters. And this mantra is addressed to the four deities or the Lord with his plenary expansions. The central figure is Lord Sri Krishna, because the plenary portions are all his aides-de-camp. The most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant and remember the glories of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his different plenary portions, expanded as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Those expansions are the original deities for all other truths, namely either Vishnu Tattva or Shakti Tattvas. Text 38. Thus, he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who has no material form. Purport. Our present senses are all made of material elements, and therefore they are imperfect in realizing the transcendental form of Lord Vishnu. He is therefore worshipped by sound representation via the transcendental method of chanting. Anything which is beyond the scope of experience by our imperfect senses can be realized fully by the sound representation. A person transmitting sound from a far distant place can be factually experienced. If this is materially possible, why not spiritually? This experience is not a vague, impersonal experience. It is actually an experience of the transcendental personality of Godhead, who possesses the pure form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. In the Amarakosha Sanskrit dictionary, the word murti carries import in twofold meanings, namely form and difficulty. Therefore, amurtikam is explained by Acharya Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as meaning without difficulty. The transcendental form of eternal bliss and knowledge can be experienced by our original spiritual senses, which can be revived by chanting of the holy mantras or transcendental sound representations. Such sound should be received from the transparent agency of the bona fide spiritual master, and the chanting may be practiced by the direction of the spiritual master. That will gradually lead us nearer to the Lord. This method of worship is recommended in the Pancharatrika system, which is both recognized and authorized. The Pancharatrika system has the most authorized codes for transcendental devotional service. Without the help of such codes, one cannot approach the Lord, certainly not by dry philosophical speculation. The Pancharatrika system is both practical and suitable for this age of quarrel. The Pancharatra is more important than the Vedanta for this modern age. Text 39. O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with his intimate, loving service. Purport. Communion with the Lord by transmission of the transcendental sound is non-different from the whole Spirit, Lord Sri Krishna. It is a completely perfect method for approaching the Lord. By such pure contact with the Lord, without offense of material conceptions, numbering 10, the devotee can rise above the material plane to understand the inner meaning of the Vedic literatures, including the Lord's existence in the transcendental realm. The Lord reveals his identity gradually to one who has unflinching faith, both in the spiritual master and in the Lord. After this, the devotee is endowed with mystic opulences, which are 8 in number. And above all, the devotee is accepted in the confidential entourage of the Lord and is entrusted with a specific service of the Lord through the agency of the spiritual master. A pure devotee is more interested in serving the Lord than in showing an exhibition of the mystic powers dormant in him. Sri Narada has explained all these from his personal experience, and one can obtain all the facilities which Sri Narada obtained by perfecting the chanting process of the sound representation of the Lord. There is no bar for chanting this transcendental sound by anyone, provided it is received through Narada's representative, coming down by the chain of disciplic succession, or the Parampara system. Text 40. Please, therefore, describe the Almighty Lord's activities which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas, for that will satisfy the hankerings of great learned men, and at the same time mitigate the miseries of the masses of common people, who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries. Purport. Sri Narada Muni, from practical experience, definitely asserts that the prime solution of all problems of material work is to broadcast very widely the transcendental glories of the Supreme Lord. There are 4 classes of good men, and there are 4 classes of bad men also. The 4 classes of good men acknowledge the authority of the Almighty God, and therefore such good men, 1, when they are in difficulty, 2, when they are in need of money, 3, when they are advanced in knowledge, and 4, when they are inquisitive to know more and more about God, intuitively take shelter of the Lord. Therefore Narada Ji advises Vyasadeva to broadcast the transcendental knowledge of God in terms of the vast Vedic knowledge which he had already attained. As far as the bad men are concerned, they are also 4 in number. 1, those who are simply addicted to the mode of progressive fruitive work and thus are subjected to the accompanying miseries. 2, those who are simply addicted to vicious work for sense satisfaction and so suffer the consequence. 3, those who are materially very much advanced in knowledge, but who suffer because they do not have the sense to acknowledge the authority of the Almighty Lord. And 4, the class of men who are known as atheists and do therefore purposely hate the very name of God, although they are always in difficulty. Sri Narada Ji advised Vyasadeva to describe the glories of the Lord, just to do good to all 8 classes of men, both good and bad. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is therefore not meant for any particular class of men or sex. It is for the sincere soul who actually wants his own welfare and peace of mind. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 1st canto, 5th chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Narada's Instructions on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for Vyasadeva. Oh, glories to Narada Muni and Vyasadeva and their holy discussion, which resulted in the manifestation of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in this age of Kali Yuga, so that we can hear and try to understand and explain it to others. This is the process. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, we will go on to chapter 6. Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. See, we started a little late today, so we're going to go a little later. Text 1. Sutta said, O Brahmanas, thus hearing all about Sri Narada's birth and activities, Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God and son of Satyavati, inquired as follows. Purport. Vyasadeva was further inquisitive to know about the perfection of Naradaji, and therefore he wanted to know about him more and more. In this chapter, Naradaji will describe how he was able to have a brief audience with the Lord while he was absorbed in the transcendental thought of separation from the Lord, and when it was very painful for him. Text 2. Sri Vyasadeva said, What did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? Purport. Vyasadeva himself was the disciple of Naradaji, and therefore it was natural to be anxious to hear what Narada did after initiation from the spiritual masters. He wanted to follow in Narada's footsteps in order to attain to the same perfect stage of life. This desire to inquire from the spiritual master is an essential factor to the progressive path. This process is technically known as Saddharma Prichcha. Text 3. O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation? And how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course? Purport. Sri Narada Muni in his previous life was just an ordinary maidservant's son. So how he became so perfectly transformed into the spiritual body of eternal life, bliss, and knowledge is certainly important. Sri Vyasadeva desired him to disclose the facts for everyone's satisfaction. Text 4. O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time? Purport. As spirit is not annihilated even after the annihilation of the material body, so also spiritual consciousness is not annihilated. Sri Narada developed this spiritual consciousness even when he had his material body in the previous kalpa. Consciousness of the material body means spiritual consciousness expressed through the medium of a material body. This consciousness is inferior, destructible, and perverted. But superconsciousness of the supramind on the spiritual plane is as good as the spirit soul and is never annihilated. Text 5. Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. Purport. In his previous life, when Naradaji was impregnated with spiritual knowledge by the grace of the great sages, there was a tangible change in his life, although he was only a boy of 5 years. That is an important symptom. That is an important symptom visible after initiation by the bona fide spiritual master. Actual association of devotees brings about a quick change in life for spiritual realization. How it so acted upon the previous life of Sri Narada Muni is described by and by in this chapter. How it so acted upon the previous life of Sri Narada Muni is described by and by in this chapter. Text 6. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a single woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection. Text 7. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. Text 8. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. Text 9. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time. Purport. That is the way of dragging a sincere soul nearer to God. The poor mother was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. Text 10. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. Purport. Confidential devotees of the Lord see in every step a benedictory direction of the Lord. What is considered to be an odd or difficult moment in the mundane sense is accepted as special mercy of the Lord. Mundane prosperity is a kind of material fever, and by the grace of the Lord, the temperature of this material fever is gradually diminished, and spiritual health is obtained step by step. Mundane people misunderstand it. Text 11. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. Purport. Man's activities in agriculture, mining, farming, industries, gardening, and so on, were all on the same scale as they are now, even previous to the present creation. And the same activities will remain as they are, even in the next creation. After many hundreds of millions of years, one creation is started by the law of nature, and the history of the universe repeats itself practically in the same way. The mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. After getting an impetus in spiritual life, Sri Narada Muni, even though a mere child, did not waste time for a single moment with economic development, although he passed towns and villages, mines and industries. He continually went on to progressive spiritual emancipation. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the repetition of history which happened some hundreds of millions of years ago. It was said hereinbefore, only the most important factors of history are picked up to be recorded in this transcendental literature. Text 12. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, and decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds. And we're going to stop here. We started a little late, so we went a little late. It's 7:50. So we'll start on text 13 tomorrow, and we'll find out more and more about the adventures of Narada Muni. Okay, Hare Krishna. Everyone out there in cyberspace, please be kind to us and give us your reflections, discussion on this very wonderful section, beginning section of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Hare Krishna.
First is from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi, Haribo, Haribo.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all friends assembled. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai. All glories to His divine grace.
We are happy to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from you every day. Jai Ho.
Hare Krishna.
Rati Manjari says Jai Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Rati, Haribo, Haribo.
And from Gopal Roy.
Jai Gopal Roy, Hare Krishna.
Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you as always for a wonderful reading. I was appreciating how Naradaji advised Vyasadeva to describe the glories of the Lord to all classes of men, for good and for bad. I have found myself in somewhat similar situations where I might be giving a presentation on Krishna consciousness to a new audience, and sometimes feel similarly dissatisfied afterwards. On reflection, it is usually because I did not present Krishna enough. Am I right in seeing these instructions of Narada and Srila Prabhupada that we should not avoid presenting Krishna out of fear that it may not be accepted by our audience? In your extensive experience in preaching, is there a general rule or principle that you can recommend to keep in mind when presenting Krishna to new audiences?
Well, first of all, not all audiences are the same. And whenever I present Krishna consciousness to a group of people, new group of people, I keep it to the basics, first of all, because everyone needs to hear the basics, and everyone can relate easier to the basics, that we're not the body, that, the material world is a place, a temporary place, where we keep getting attached to one another and to different things, and then they get taken away, and so on and so forth. How much we talk about Krishna directly depends on the audience to a certain extent, and you should always be conscious of who's in the audience and deal accordingly. But Srila Prabhupada was never one to compromise just because the audience was one way or another. He would always go straight to the point. But that doesn't mean that we necessarily have to bring out everything to show to everybody in the beginning. We have to bring out those things that we can see. If you are talking to an audience and you're conscious, you look at the faces and be conscious of who is who. Pick out the ones that are a little bit more awake, a little bit more attentive, that you can see, want to hear, and you go further. Based on that principle that, we should give time and circumstance instructions to people to help them go forward from where they are. If we speak too much about the intimate details of the glories of the holy name and Krishna to an audience that is inimical, then there may be problems. There were two examples that happened even in Srila Prabhupada's time. One was in Australia, where a group of students got together and plotted against Prabhupada and had it all planned out before the lecture began. And they were even defacing the vehicles of the devotees, and it was violent and nasty. And the other one was in France, and Srila Prabhupada chanted. At one point he stopped everything and he just said chant, and afterwards he said, we're not going to have any more programs like that. Not if it's known that will be the reaction. If it's known that these kinds of people are there and they're going to make this kind of problem, this kind of trouble. So there's no hard and fast rule. We don't compromise, but at the same time we don't have to give everything at once. And we measure the audience depending on how they respond, and we give as much as we can without causing them to make offense. Hare Krishna.
And from Bhakta Rupa.
Hari Bol Bhakta Rupa.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for reading. Very grateful. Past few readings, it's been difficult to focus on just hearing, which is frustrating as I know I'm missing out. I know that being absorbed in hearing is the same as associating with Krishna himself, which is what takes away all problems and makes life worth living. I really want to get better at hearing nicely and wondered if you could share some wisdom on why the mind may get distracted and how to overcome it. Thanks, Maharaj.
Well, we've been in this material world since time immemorial. We don't even remember when we came into this material world. And therefore, the attachments and affections to material energy, they go very deep. And they're not easy to overcome. And Maya is very strong, and it's her business. She's a pure devotee. And it's her business to attract us to the material energy instead of to Krishna. But that doesn't mean that we should in any way, shape or form reduce our effort or back off from the effort to progress in Krishna consciousness. It's always, and I repeat, it's always temporary. When our mind puts us into a dark place or an agitated place, if you be patient and don't scratch the itch, as Prabhupada used to say, then the itch eventually goes away. Every time. And with experience, if we do that gradually over time, and the steady practice of spiritual sadhana, then gradually the mind will settle down. And it may take a long time. Nature helps us, and nature obstructs us, both. She obstructs us by putting us in situations that make us agitated, by remembering past events and past sense gratification, and helps us as we go along in life and we get older. You get over 70, and automatically the passions subside in the body, and the mind also becomes less agitated, and then we can go deeper and deeper. So the best advice that can be given is to continue to hear and chant without stopping for any reason. That doesn't mean 24/7. It can mean 24/7, but generally it means regularly, every day, to spend enough time hearing and chanting, and especially if we're in the association of other devotees who like to hear and chant, this is the medicine. While we're in a jaundiced condition, while we're still materially contaminated, sometimes it won't taste sweet. Sometimes it won't seem like it's getting the job done. But a person who has jaundice, in the Ayurvedic system, the solution is to take rock candy, sugar candy. And it tastes so bad that you want to vomit. I know I had a heavy case of jaundice in Vrindavan after I finished overseeing the refurbishment of the Govardhan ashram for a few years. I got, very, very ill with jaundice. I looked like a banana. I was yellow like a banana. And I had to take, sip, water that had been soaked with sugar candy, and it tasted horrible. I didn't want to take it. Just like when you're sick and the doctor gives you medicine, you don't want to take it. He tells you you can't eat this, you can't eat that. You still want to take it. You still want to eat it. But if you're serious and you want to get well, then you follow the orders of the doctor, and then patiently, as a good patient, good patient, that's right. Then you gradually feel yourself getting better. But it's not that you have to wait for years and years and years. You also get relief, immediately, very often, if not every day, while you're hearing and chanting, or while you're preaching, or while you're serving, when that agitation goes down, because it always does. It goes up and down, up and down. The more we become steady at our sadhana during those times, the more the taste will help us. The more the taste will increase, and that will help us overcome the modes of material nature. And the goal, the reward at the end, pure love of Krishna, is worth the effort. It's worth the trouble. Hare Krishna. You don't get anything in this world of value, of import, without dedicating yourself, performing austerities, and working hard. So we have to work hard, just like the karmis work hard to make a lot of money and get, opulent situations and make empires and get fabulous wealth and so on and so forth. We have to work as hard as they do for sense gratification, only for Krishna consciousness. And to the proportion that you do that, that's the proportion to which Krishna responds. Yayata mam prapadyante tang sataiva bhajamyaham mamabhart manubartante manusha partha sarvaja. As everyone approaches me, I reward them accordingly. He responds according to the mentality of the devotee, according to the effort of the devotee, and eventually according to the desire of the devotee to have him in relationship. Hare Krishna.
From Gauranga Gopal.
Haribo Gauranga Gopal.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada.
I find it remarkable to have such a literature that is testifying on history pre-creation. It helps reflect that there is no point staying in this material world, where the same things are going on again and again and again. Shivaram Swami, in a class on the topic of marathon spirit that he gave yesterday morning for the UK, quoted one of his godbrothers who said that someone who knows about the Krishna conscious philosophy would either become a devotee or commit suicide, because there is nothing in this world worth staying without devotion to Krishna.
Yes, well, there's that verse that states, who in their right minds will not serve Krishna after hearing about him? And the answer is, as we said, I think yesterday, Pashugna, one who is either killer of animals or killing oneself. Killing oneself doesn't mean necessarily committing suicide. That's the worst thing that a person can do. Because if you commit suicide, it's so sinful, and you get such a bad situation in your next life. It makes it 100 times worse. So why should you want to do something that's 100 times makes it 100 times worse? So, but if we're killing animals, eating their flesh just for the taste of your own tongue, what do we get? Pandemics, chaos, confusion, economic chaos, political chaos, social chaos. And that's what Prabhupada said in this, one of these purports that we just read. Hell, it becomes a hellish situation. So even in the midst of that hellish situation, if you somehow or other can remember by singing while you're working, what is it? What is that? Whistle while you work? Yeah, whistle while you work. You know, sing. You see people sometimes while they're working, they're singing. This is what the Brajbasis do. This is what the Brajbasis do in the spiritual world. They clean their houses, they cook, they work, they till the fields, they take care of the cows, they have their social, religious functions, you know, in births and marriages and other things, initiations, and all the time they hear and chant the glories of the activities of Krishna. The pastimes of Krishna are so potent, the holy name of Krishna is so potent that it actually holds off, it staves off those temptations that are always being put before us by the illusory energy, by Maya. There's no way to escape that. There's no way to escape having to see something that is not good while you're in the material world. Things are happening. You can't box yourself up. Of course, we've had a nice experience since I've had these surgeries and the pandemic combined together. I've been kind of, you know, cloistered in this flat for a couple of years. But we travel with our subtle bodies throughout the universe by hearing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and by reading the Bhagavad Gita every day and discussing it with like-minded devotees. That taste is so strong that it will wash away all these other bad habits. It just takes time, depending on how severe the habits are. So my advice in general is to be patient and determined and enthusiastic about hearing about Krishna and pleasing Krishna, who is the source of everything, including us, including all the things we have, everything. Hare Krishna.
From Vrajaloka Devidasi.
Yes, Vrajaloka. Hare Krishna. Welcome home. Welcome back.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All the devotees should send some good vibes to her, because I think her husband has COVID. Maybe she also may. I don't know for sure, but her husband does. So it's a rough patch.
Thank you for today's reading. All of the verses and purports today were so tasty and enlivening. I really like to hear how simply Srila Prabhupada described the preaching method of Lord Chaitanya. Quote, "He has taught the lesson for preaching the transcendental message through singing, dancing, and refreshment. No one will disagree to partake in a function where good singing, dancing, and refreshment are administered." Unquote. My mother often says that the Hare Krishnas have the best life. They only have to sing and dance and eat. And how wonderful that throughout these simple processes we can understand God and share this understanding with others. Your servant, Vrajaloka.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Vrajaloka. That was a beautiful reflection. May we all live by it.
From Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight I marked how the death of the mother of the boy who would become Narada Muni was considered by him to be special mercy of the Lord, so that he would become fully dependent upon the Lord. This is such a different way of viewing misfortune than modern society does. It is meaningful to me personally because I lost the ones who raised me early in life. To consider that this could be a kind of favor of the Lord is comforting. The early encounters with death did in fact sober me up about the temporary nature of life. I also have a small question. You were mentioning the song Whistle While You Work. I have heard that whistling is not recommended for devotees.
It's poetic, it's not meant that you go whistle. Whistle's not nice, but it was meant to say that if you sing and chant while you're doing your work, then you become happy. Don't whistle while you work. It was a poetic expression. Thank you.
Let's read the rest of that. I've heard that whistling is not recommended for devotees because it creates holes in one's aura, through which unwanted entities can enter to trouble the person. Is this information correct?
I have no idea. That's
from Vrajaloka.
But definitely you can sing Hare Krishna, as you do, Rati, and you're super expert at it. Just continue to do that. It's a detail. It's an unimportant detail. You never see any devotees whistling, and I think there is something to it. Yes, there is something to it. You know, it's a law. It's a natural law. There are all kinds of subtle laws of nature that we don't know very much about. They're contained in the Jyotish Shastra and other, corollary Vedic literatures. So yes, we shouldn't whistle. Also yawning, you see the devotees, they when they yawn, they'll snap their fingers in front of their mouths so some ghost can't get in. These things are true, but devotional service is so powerful that we generally don't have to worry about those kinds of things, generally. Hare Krishna.
And another comment from Vrajaloka.
Yes, Vrajaloka.
The best medicine for us is hearing the Bhagavatam from your mouth in the company of wonderful devotees. Thank you for your kindness. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His Divine
All
Grace,
glories
Srila
to you.
Prabhupada. Thank you for your appreciation. It's deeply appreciated. Hare Krishna.
And from Rati Manjari.
Jai Rati.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. It is so nice how I can ask all kinds of questions to you and you patiently reply. It is a true opulence to have your daily association.
Hare Krishna. Okay, that's it for tonight for us. It's getting late. And also I've been told by our dear Mayapur Shashi, who downloads and then uploads these Facebook readings onto the YouTube. If they're more than an hour, then it takes sometimes a long time and a lot of effort. So I want to help him and serve him in this way. So we'll stop today for our daily readings. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same topic. The beautiful science of pure devotional service. Hare Krishna.